Hey everyone, welcome back to Once Lost Ministries. I'm Flynn Hughesby, and we are going to be diving into the weird world of social media a little bit today. If you have maybe been living under a rock or maybe just on vacation to some distant tropical, I don't know, island for the last probably 5 months, maybe you have missed this. But otherwise, if you have kids or if you've been watching anything sports related lately, you have probably caught the 6-7 trend that really has caught people by storm. It's I want to dive into a little bit of what it's about or what it could be about, and maybe some of the bigger challenges that we face with this new generation. So stick with me as we take a look at the 6-7 craze. So with the 6-7, if you haven't been around or haven't noticed it, if you find any kid, you could ask them, "Hey, tell me about 6-7," and they'll be able to tell you 6-7, and they'll do the little hand motions like this, and they'll think it's hilarious. And then you could ask them, "What does it mean?" And they will inevitably tell you, "Well, it doesn't mean anything." And so that's why we are going to take a look at, really, does it mean nothing or does it mean something? And either way, it really does mean something. So I want to show you this first. I'm going to add this and just take a look at, this is one example of the 6-7 craze recently. Here we go.
Hottie lay back to the line, rattles in the first. Hottie having the best game of her Auburn career today. Only the fourth game of the season, but she's got 15 points, 5 of 6 from the field, and 5 of 5 from the.
So you might be thinking, yeah, that's kind of funny or interesting or whatever, but what's the point? Like, but did you notice that, that there are a lot of things that are going on in the world today, and they are certainly seemingly harmless, but maybe not so much, but they're certainly arguably, not even arguably, obviously influential. Now in that game, the score was 66. She shot the free throw and then it became 67. You saw all the kids just across everywhere doing the 6-7 thing. And what's interesting, the camera people were ready for it, so they knew it was coming. And that's just kind of the trending that's going on right now. And you might say, well, every generation, every year, there's some kind of weird trending like skippity toilet baloney and all the other stuff that trends and is meaningless. And so what's the point? Well, there are 2 points, well, maybe more, but there are 2 basic points that I want to talk about. First of all, even if it is only meaningless, this is the way I talk to my students about it. Originally was, even if it is only meaningless, then why in the world are you doing it, right? There's the whole reality in our world of being influenced by social media. So there is this reality of influencers. There's a reality of kids that are just moved along through the waves of trends, whether they be body image trends or makeup image trends or performance image trends or verbiage image trends, like what this is going on with the 6-7. It really does show you how much like sheep we really are. And so I've challenged my students, like, well, okay, well, if it doesn't mean anything, then maybe number one, maybe do some digging and make sure that's the case. But number two, then why join in? Like, clearly this is a trend. This is so much a trend, by the way, that dictionary.com has added the 6-7 meme to, or its general definition to one of their 2025 colloquialisms that they added for this year. So clearly it has a huge influence. You have people like the Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal. He's saying, "Oh, my kid told me about this. I have no idea what it means, but I'll say it," and then everybody kind of goes wild. And so okay, so let's say it is just meaninglessness. Let's just say that it's just something that caught on, fan fad, whatever, and everybody's just kind of doing it. Well, I came across an interesting. I'm going to go ahead and add this. I came across an interesting video that was examining this idea of of is 6'7" really, just meaningless? And if it is meaningless, then should it, why should we be bothered by that? And it got me thinking about this at this level. So I'm gonna just play just a second, or well, a little more than a second. Oh, okay, I can figure out how to click buttons, but apparently I'm button click happy today. I want to play just a second or two or a little bit more of this one, and then we'll go from there. So give me just a second. I've got several videos I want to show you guys. So here's one of them.
Time you scroll and see the same 6-7 video, your brain's like, oh, hey, I know that one. And boom, dopamine. No thought required.
Dopamine for his blood pressure.
We've gone from clever Vine humor to literal number noises.
6-7! 1 minute I'm on top of the world, and the next I'm at rock bottom.
The fake depth of random humor. And here's the worst part. People are now pretending it's deep. They'll be like, no, you don't understand. 6-7 represents the absurdity of modern life. It's
So I had to put that on there, and I'm gonna actually try backing up just a little bit, because there was another thing he said. I'll see if I can find it really quick. If I can find it quickly. I don't know if I can. Let's see.
right. I did miss something. Turns out I missed the memo that memes no longer need logic, punchlines, or effort. They just need to exist. Because this is funny, but everyone's laughing, so I guess I'll laugh too energy. The 6-7 meme is literally the peak of nothing humor. It's like internet nihilism in meme form. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't mean anything, but somehow it's everywhere. People will repost the same clip 1,000 times, each caption slightly different. 6-7, but it's 3 a.m. 6-7, but I'm mentally unstable. 6-7, but I'm watching this for the 47th time. Like, bro, you're not watching it for the 47th time. You're being held hostage by your algorithm. The algorithm made us dumb. That's the real problem here. We didn't create the 6-7 meme. The algorithm did. The internet figured out that the human brain doesn't crave meaning anymore. It craves familiarity.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay, that's where I want to just pause for a second. So his observation, he's obviously not a Christian, but his observation to the whole thing, I think, is fair. In fact, more than fair. I think that he is dealing with trying to cover the issue that 6-7, even if it does mean nothing, which I would argue maybe it means something, but even if it doesn't mean something, then you've got this issue of our conditioning of not being able to think. So as I was thinking about being conditioned to not think anymore, I was thinking, it might be interesting to actually think a little bit and take a look at a couple scriptures. So I'm going to pause on my commentary on commenting on that guy commenting on 6-7, and I'm going to go ahead and actually let the scriptures commentate for us. So here we go. I'm going to start with Isaiah 1:18, and it says this: "Come now, let us reason together, says the Lord. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Though they be red as crimson, they shall be as wool." And you might say, well, that's a great, maybe basic gospel verse, but that's the beginning of this that really does help us make sense of some of what is going on in our culture. Come now and let us reason together. Now, there are a lot of good scriptures. I'm going to share a couple in just a few minutes here, or a couple seconds, or whatever, somewhere in between a couple seconds and a few minutes. But I'm going to share a couple of scriptures dealing with this idea of, do we really want to be a mindless society that just simply is moved about by the latest trend? And this might seem like just a simple argument, but it really isn't. This generation, like maybe for grownups, or maybe for at least some grownups, this maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But for a lot of grownups, this is, or for a lot of kids, I should say, this is a huge deal, because they are trained, or being trained, or have been trained since basically the cradle to follow the latest trend. I mean, I was just watching the other night, there's, a whole line of skincare products now that are out for preschoolers. And you go, huh? But it is a trend for people to be influenced, kids to be influenced to want to buy the latest skincare, products. And these companies know that. I'm going to talk about the company marketing aspect of this 6-7 in just a little bit too. But God doesn't want us just to move along on every trend. So that's something that we need to be talking to this next generation about. And, if you have trouble talking to kids about the scriptures, ask them about 6-7, and you'll see their faces light up. And all of a sudden you have become both cringe and relevant at the same time. So at least it'll open a door of discussion. And the door really should be, why are we doing what we do? The door should be, are we doing things mindlessly just because it is something that is socially contagious right now? That's certainly worth considering. Are we being trained? I mean, this person who wasn't even a Christian that I just played on their video commenting on 6-7 was baffled, and younger than me, but baffled by memes having no meaning. And meme culture is huge. It's been around for a long time, actually, way before the internet. But the idea of using cartoons or memes to discuss society is actually a very interesting topic to dive into. But that's not our discussion today. But the stripping of something of complete meaning is extremely dangerous, because for two reasons. Number one, it causes you not to think. Number two, because it's hollowed out, it allows people to inject meaning. And you heard that, it's so deep, man. It's just so deep. There are a lot of people that are injecting meaning into something like 6-7 where maybe there wasn't. And it allows a lot of people to take a really popular idea and draw people along to maybe some things that aren't very godly. Now, I personally don't necessarily take the view that 6-7 is completely meaningless. I actually believe it does have a meaning, but I think a lot of people don't really know what the background is. And so I'm going to do my best to quickly try to share with you guys a little bit so that it gets people thinking. That's the goal, get people thinking. And scripturally, that's the goal, to get people thinking scripturally about God's word and about God. And that's our goal for today, as every day. So as I'm going through these scriptures, speaking of scripturally, I want to go to a couple more. I went look this one up a little bit earlier. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, it says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour." Our goal is to be alert and to be aware of what's going on, not just be mindlessly moved about through not just every wind of doctrine, but every wind of social media. But it says, "Whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world." So our goal is to be vigilant. Our goal is to be aware and to be awake to what the enemy's devices are, at least. So we shouldn't be sleeping on these things, and to be careful thinkers for sure. Let me pull up another verse really quick. So 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3, it says this, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God." So we get this idea, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. So we certainly get this idea that casting down imaginations, which vain imaginations, vain thinking, useless thinking, worthless thinking, empty thinking, godless thinking, and we capture everything that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. We talk about that and how 6-7 may very well do that, bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Then 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, it says, "God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." So again, we have this sound mind theme. God wants us to be sound in our reasoning, sound in our thinking, biblical in our reasoning, biblical in our thinking, careful, sober-minded, not sleeping, not mindless, not zombie-like. And I use that word very intentionally for hopefully what comes up. I'll try to remember to bring that up later. I didn't write it down in my notes, but it is something that it was mentioned later. So then verse, I think I'm going to pause there on the verses. So I'm going to go here and then read this one again. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. So that is where we want to go today. We want to go in a power of love, not of fear, and of a sound mind, and discuss maybe for just a minute or two or three some of the realities of what's going on with the 6-7. So let me get myself actually pulled back up here. So, and let me do this, and I want to, oh, interesting. Okay, so I wanted to add something to the stage, but I think I will do it this way instead. So, okay, that's what I forgot to do. So, all right, so let me talk about this really quick. So the 6-7 sort of phenomenon that's happening. I want to give you a little bit of history in case you're not familiar with it. So I wrote down in my notes. So if I glance down, I'm glancing at notes because I don't have them up on the screen. So unofficially, the way, well, I don't want to say unofficially. Officially, where the 6-7 comes from is really from Skrilla. He's a rapper, and he came out with a song called "Doot Doot," and he actually wrote this or dropped it unofficially in December of 2024. So when he dropped this song, he kind of leaked it out there, is what he says, back in December, or maybe a little bit before, but officially it was unofficially December. Okay. So he dropped this song, Doot Doot, and it sounds silly, the name of the song, but if you listen to it, which I will play just a tiny bit of it so we don't get copyright struck or anything like that, but I'm going to play a tiny bit of it so you can hear how awful it is. And when he references the 6-7, there have been some people who have speculated as to what he's talking about, that maybe the 6-7 is dealing with maybe a call sign of like the police, talking about one of their codes, and we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. There's also discussion of some other things that maybe it meant, but there's a lot of speculation as to the meaning. He's been very careful, by the way, Skrilla has been very careful not to exactly say what he meant. He did say, I was watching one of his interviews a little bit earlier that happened a few weeks ago, and he did come out and say it was something negative in his song. He meant it as something negative, but it has turned into a positive. And maybe that'll make sense as we talk a little bit more about his story, because that's really what we have to understand if we want to really understand where this comes from, or maybe at least get a glimpse at maybe where it comes from. So anyway, back to December 2024. So the song gets dropped. It's just a 2.5-minute song, nothing major and nothing really that exceptional. Actually, very dark rap song. But because of the connection, I think that some artists have with some sports members or players or people who enjoy sports, like the rap industry seems to have some connections, sometimes just enjoyment in some sports worlds. So it really got filtered into basketball at the time. And there were a lot of people referencing it loosely in basketball. Ideas like, I think one of the things I read about was that there was a basketball player, LaMelo Ball from the Charlotte Hornets, that he is 6'7". So people were connecting, like using that, 6'7", 6'7". So you were hearing it in the world of basketball, in the world of sports a little bit from about December. But then a few weeks after it got dropped, the song got dropped, that what happened next in the history was kind of what really started 6-7 as getting really popular. So a few weeks after it got dropped unofficially, by the way, officially it got dropped in January, but a few weeks after it got dropped, the kid who made it famous, he's called the 6-7 kid. He's a basketball star in his own right as a high school star, and looking at going to college for basketball. And his name is Talon. They call him TK Kinney. And he's really known as the one who really popularized it or got it really, really going. And someone interviewed him just briefly for he actually plays basketball for what's called the Overtime Elite. And somebody was interviewing him. They were going to post it on their site for the Overtime Elite. And he had a Starbucks drink. And they said, "How would you rate it?" And he said, 6.7. And so his funny reference, which I think was already going around at that point within those communities, basketball and sports communities, he was just being silly with it, and it kicked off. And then people just started going crazy with it. So he's known as the 6'7" kid. Like it or not, a brand picked up on him. So he's actually producing a 6'7" brand of water that's coming out in June. So one of the interviews, he said his TikTok followers went from 200,000 to now they're at about 1 million or more that are following him. So he has certainly launched himself into the stratosphere through all of the social media stuff. And then there was so it went from the song to a sports reference to kind of pretty mainstream at that point to extreme crazy mainstream meme mainstream through another kid. So another basketball game, high school basketball game was being videoed. And this kid, the videoer, by the way, the YouTube videoer was Cam Wilder. He was videoing for a basketball high school game, and he zoomed over to this kid, Maverick Trevelyan, I think is how you pronounce his last name. And he was about 12 at the time. And he just referenced 6'7" because I think the score was at 67 or something at that point. And he referenced it, and then it just wildfire from there. So at that point, that was like March. So from December 2024 to March 2025, you've just got it like literally wildfire. And now, I mean, in my class, we had to ban it as a school. We decided to, mainly because of the mindlessness and distraction of it. A lot of schools have actually gone to that point. And so you say, okay, well, again, this has turned out to be a funny fad. And what's the big deal? Well, look, you have to go back to the source to really get the big deal. You have to go back to the original issue. And arguably, the original issue is quite an issue. So when you look at Skrilla, who wrote the song Doot Doot, which he then changed to Doot Doot 6'7" after it really got popular through TK, Talon Kinney. He changed the song at that point to include that 6'7" in the title. But it has kicked off gangbusters. And the tie-in between Skrilla and this reference has kind of been where people are not sure where the tie-in comes. And like I said earlier, he has not necessarily been very clear, probably for a variety of reasons, but he did say that there is reference to 67th Street in Philly, which is connected to a lot of gang activity, drug activity. Skrilla has been, busted for heroin possession, drug sales. He's going through a big thing right now where he had a fake gun in one of his videos, and he stopped traffic wherever he was videoing, and the police came and he shot this bean or BB or whatever jelly gun thing and it hit one of the police officers. So there's issues with that right now. He's actually facing lit charges because of that. But he's got a whole crazy record. I'm not going to get into all of his history, but I am going to get into a tiny bit, which is not going to be a tiny bit. But before that, if you Google the 6'7" thing, you're going to hear people referencing, the police radio call, the 1067, which is a code for death. Some people are saying it's the 6'7" that's connected to the 6'7" basketball player I mentioned earlier, but that's historic. If you look at the history, that's later. So the 6'7" that he's referencing, that the Skrilla is referencing, a lot of people have said, well, maybe it's 67th Street in Philly. Maybe it's the 1067 for the police. Maybe it's there. I even read somebody said, well, a casket is 6 feet down, 7 feet apart from each other. I researched that, and that's not even true. The 6 feet down is, but 7 feet apart is not, from what I could see. So the one thing, though, that popped that was really interesting to me was looking at his religious background. So, and that's what that's why we're doing this video. We're not, I mean, if it's mindless meme stuff, sure, that's worth talking about for sure. But this video specifically is dealing with the religious aspect of where this may or may not have come from. So there's not direct links to him ever saying that this is where it's from, but I'm going to do my best to at least present the information. And even if it's not what he was referencing, I certainly think it may open the door for people to start researching more of this because of the popularity of this meme. So without further ado, I will say at this point, there are going to be a couple videos that I referenced that have really mild swear words. We're going to do our best to maybe bleep them out. And they're really, they're hard to to hear, and it's not often. It might be just a little bit because I'm pulling from some sources that are not Christian sources. So if you have any kids, you may want to pause, or just, yourself maybe want to just read the transcript of this at this point. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and add a couple things. The way I have to add these may take just a second, so I apologize for that. So let's see if I can find the first one. Okay, here it is. So I'm going to pull this one up. I'm going to just play a minute or so of this one. So here we go. Oops. He stopped sharing that one. Well, actually, let me play this one first. You'll get a sense of the song itself. So here we go. Let me pause on that. I guess that one's not sharing. So let me see if I can find the other one. I thought that one was sharing. There we go. This is the one that's sharing. So hold on one sec. We're going to go back and we'll look at the song in just a sec, but I want to play this one first.
It went viral. Kids were saying 6'7" so much that schools are banning them from using the words. 6'7" isn't just a viral trend, though.
That's the kid I referenced earlier, the Maverick. He's the one who really got it going in the meme world. Right now, it's kicked off into some really weird stuff in the meme world. And there's more to this. I don't want to get into that too much right now. So just generally speaking, this is the kid Maverick Trevelyan that a lot of people reference as the meme right now.
And today we're breaking down the brutal animal sacrifices, murder, and demonic rituals behind the track and viral trend. 6'7" took over TikTok like crazy and turned Skrilla into one of the hottest rappers in the world overnight. But what the kids saying 6'7" don't know is the crazy dark story behind the track. Skrilla believes in a religion called Santeria, and he's been talking about making animal sacrifices and putting curses on his ops for years. Skrilla even brought a YouTuber named Brandon Buckingham to his godfather's crib so they could talk about all the gods they worship.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it there. He gets into a little bit of rough language there. But if you noticed, as I go back here, you're going to see this is actually what happened with Skrilla. Is he's raised in Philly and raised under a really bad situation. And he's got a godfather who practices Santeria. And he actually is quoted to say that he goes back to all of this stuff, the Santeria, to find his hope, to find his peace in a crazy world. And this is actually his godfather's stuff. So this YouTuber went and took a look at all of it. And that's really what I want to point out here is that this guy is heavily influenced by Santeria's religion. So you might be saying, okay, well, I don't know anything about Santeria religion or its, mystical occultic beliefs at all. And I say, okay, well, that's good. Then we need to know a little bit about that. So in Santeria, you've got this idea that it really comes from a Cuban or Caribbean, African mix of mysticism, magic, practice, and actually mathematics is somewhat involved in it as well. And you've got a variety of different, think of like what you know about Greek religion with the pantheon of gods, false gods. That's really what Santeria is. It's got a pantheon of false gods that you can access. They have a priest, and their priests have particular names. And then those priests will practice particular methods in order to get either blessings or get knowledge, and that's part of really what it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can't share a little bit of the actual religion itself. So give me just a second, because I want to make sure that I pull up the right window. And it's looking like it doesn't want me to grab that window. So I will see if I can find it and pull it in just a sec. But with the Santeria, or the Santeria religion, what you've got is an issue with all of the mystical beliefs of the African religions all blended together, the mystical religions. Shamanism almost is what you could say, magic. And then you've also got this weird blend of Catholicism that was influential in the missionaries. And all of that was blended together, moved to Cuba, and then, to the Caribbean. And then eventually it moved to America through a lot of the slave trade, unfortunately. And it's been a part of, unfortunately, a part of what we have influenced in our culture today. And Skrilla is certainly involved with that. Here, I've figured out everything else that I think I need to figure out for screen sharing. I had a glitch going on in my tabs, but we got that resolved. I'm going to go ahead and share this one. I want to show you just a little bit of this person's take on Santeria.
Skrilla actually worships other deities that are found in the religion Santeria. Now, Santeria is an Afro-Caribbean religion that mixes West African Yoruba spirit worship and Roman Catholic saint imagery. Now, it developed mainly in Cuba, then it spread across the Caribbean, Latin America, and eventually the USA. But Skrilla is involved in this. This is his main thing. And he also worships the gods, little g, gods of this religion that's called Santeria. Let me name some of them for you. So you have Ogun, which is the spirit of war, iron, and weapons. Then you have Oshun, which is the spirit of rivers.
By the way, these are more of those images of that YouTuber that was touring through his Godfather's place. So these are the actual things that are set up that he would be very familiar with.
Beauty and sensuality. Then you have Shango, which is fire and thunder. Ilagua, a trickster or a gatekeeper. So do you see all of these?
So I'm going to pause there on that one. And so when we have somebody like this, that's heavily influenced in something like Santeria religion, we have to at least consider, okay, well, he's mentioning something like a 6-7 in the video. And I'm going to play just a second. Well, I keep saying a second, but it's going to be a little bit more than a second, but not much of that video. And you guys can get a sense of kind of that. But again, I'm trying to be careful on so far I haven't pulled anything in accidentally, but I don't think there's any swearing going on at all in this. I skipped over one of the parts that I warned you about. I decided not to play it. So let me go ahead and add this really quick and do this. So this is the actual song, not playing much. I don't know about you, but I don't want my kids listening to this kind of stuff.
Shades on, I'm bored with the glasses. Bro say cause he a savage. So many dead ops, so many ashes. You ain't catch that, I can't pass this. Shoot a stay strap, I don't need mine. Bro put belt right to they behind. The way that switch, I know he died. 6-7.
All right, so he references the 6-7 several times through the, do I dare call it a song, through the rap. And I listened to at least 2 or 3 different interviews of his. And I will tell you, unfortunately and sadly for him, you can keep him in prayer, but he's certainly involved in a lot of stuff. And you can hear that he's not always there, whether that's through drugs or through something else. I don't know, but certainly we could be praying for him because he's just a product of a terrible, terrible religion, terrible drug environment. Not innocent. I mean, he's a grown up, but he certainly sounded like something else. Like he wasn't always there. I guess I'll say that. One of the interviews recently that someone did with him, they asked him, how would you describe your concerts? And he was on tour recently, and that's how he described it, was Zombieland. I told you I'd mention that later. And that's how he described it, Zombieland. And I think, yeah, mindless, wasted. And in one of the videos, I think in the 6-7 video, I'm not playing it right any further than that because there is some explicit language, but in the video itself, there's like maybe a 7 or 8-year-old in attendance to one of his concerts, because you could tell it's like concert view of all these different things going on. And he's been involved in a lot of different things. So again, you say, okay, well, he's connected to Santeria. You've got the 6-7 reference. He's not a good guy. He's, I don't want my kids listening to that kind of music. I get all that. But there's one last really layer to this. And that's where I think I want to end with, is just dealing with this last layer. So I'm going to go ahead and share my window. I'm going to share, pull this up on stage. Oops, there we go. And I'm going to go through and see if I can't get to here. So, and maybe I'll expand it a little so it's a little bigger for us. So the divination, which is connected to Santeria, there is this IFA divination system, and it's central to Santeria. You might say, okay, well, great. That's awesome. Terribly awesome, I guess. But I'm going to scroll down here and explain a little bit more. So this is the Afro-Caribbean religion, that this will give you some of the history. Core connections between IFA and Santeria. They share mythology, origins. Both systems are rooted in spiritual tradition. Divination, we've got the IFA is the name of the divination system itself, which involves priests, the Babalaos, interpreting messages from the divine through sacred texts called the Odu Ifas, and the tools like the divination chain, the Opeles or nuts, the Ekans, or however those are pronounced. This process is fundamental in the Santeria spiritual guidance. Deities. So the spiritual hierarchy of identity of deities, known as the Orishas, are preserved in both traditions. So Arula, also known, I'm not going to try that word, who is the personification of wisdom, plays a prominent role in both systems. So it goes through and it shows you some of the connection that the IFA is really the divination system to Santeria. Again, why should we care? Well, let me go to this one. So there is an Odi Obara 6-7, interestingly, refers to the 67th Odu in the Ifa divination system. Now, he does not directly relate this to his system, to Santeria, so I'm going to say maybe not that's what the reference is for the 6-7, because he does not come out and say that. But he did say it was something negative. Some people think that maybe he was trying to invoke a curse on maybe rival people in the music industry, or maybe rival people that are connected to other gangs that I don't think he's directly connected with any gangs, but maybe there was some kind of curse or some kind of blessing using this chant or this phrase. Now, I do have to say, if that's the case, honestly, I'm a bit more than a bit concerned that the popularity of this has literally, it's like gangbusters. So I have to say, okay, well, there's something to it, whether he intended for it or not. It is certainly being utilized as just a stupid fad, maybe, or maybe something more. But I certainly don't want to participate or have my students participate in something that could be something like this unknowingly, because you can unknowingly, unwittingly participate in something and not even know about it. And even though it's banned in my class, I mean, I made a funny reference and I said, oh, 6-7, haha. And you've seen the kids just literally almost fall out of their chairs and thinking how funny that was that I commented on it. And it was very quick and just quick how absorbed and captured they are in this kind of this sort of phenomenon or this craze. So this, by the way, the Odi Obara 6-7 refers to the 67th Odu in the Ephesus divination system, which is complex. It says key meanings. It really has to do with potential prosperity and a warning to offer sacrifice. Now he has been connected. The Skrilla guy has been connected to already saying that he offered sacrifices, and that was something in one of the videos that I didn't play. Actually, I already clicked out of it, so I'm not going to be able to pull it back up. Well, let me see if I can find it really quick. Hold on, move this really quick, and I'll put that back up in just a sec. I'm going to go ahead and pull back in this this one last time. Put it up back on stage. So I'm going to share with you, speaking of the sacrifice, that's why I'm bringing this one up, dealing with sacrifice. And this was a video I watched, an interview pretty much in full, not totally on this one, but this other YouTube video that I'm going to play actually references that interview right here.
Pulled up to the shoot, and that's why they booked him. Getting booked for a toy gun is crazy already, but then Skrilla found out that he actually got charged for assaulting a police officer. The charges probably won't stick, but they don't look like they're going to slow Skrilla down at all, though, and he's made it clear that he's going to keep on performing rituals and sacrifices no matter what people say about it.
That's my real life, though. That's my real life. That's a real life. It's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice for what I want.
What did you sacrifice to go ahead for?
I can't talk about that shit too much, though.
Blessings.
Yeah, blessings.
So what he's dealing with is looking at some of the stuff like sacrifice and blessing in a way that helps him be prosperous, in a way that he can't talk specifically about, probably because it wouldn't be popular. Also, there's a secretive layer to it. Any of the mystical stuff, occultism is, hidden secrets, hidden knowledge. So there's certain things he's not going to talk about publicly. But the guy actually asked him, well, what about the 6-7? People are saying it's sacrificial, and you got kind of crazy with all of this. And that's what he said. Well, this is my life. He didn't deny it. And, so I think there might be a little bit more to this than what we're seeing from just the general public. And a lot of people they just don't know. They just don't know. So again, I go back to this with the prosperity of the 6-7. So the Odi Obara, the 6-7 refers to the 67th Odu in the Ifa divination system, which is complex. Potential prosperity is there, warning of offer a sacrifice in Igbo to avoid misfortune. Key meanings: prosperity. The Odu foresee the potential for great financial success, risk of loss, necessity of the Igbo, and then all the fortunes and spiritual advice. That it'll go on and talk about all of this even more. And really, that's where our biggest concern is as a ministry. There are fads, there are trends, sure, and some are meaningless, but many aren't just meaningless. We simply sanitize them, or they've been sanitized through culture, and maybe the meaning has been somewhat stripped. But here's, the challenge to us is, people online are called influencers. That would imply that those that are watching are the influential. So those that are influencers are certainly influencing the influential. And sadly, a lot of those that are influenced are the kids, are those that just simply don't know better. So if I Google it, if I can Google it within about 5 minutes and find out this information and then just go down a rabbit hole for a couple hours, certainly more people can. He's gotten super popular with other rap stars. He's really riding the popularity right now of this, which will only mean his belief in Santeria and its positive prosperity will only, people will want to seek that out to see if they can be prosperous. It just opens those doors again to the mystical, the occult, in a way that is maybe seems like a stretch, but I certainly would say no, it's not a stretch. Now, I think I at least built a fairly decent case for that one. I'm going to read a couple of the false gods. The person that I played did talk about these, but Ogun is a god of war, Ocean, god of rivers, and Shango, god of fire and thunder, and Iligwa is a trickster, a gatekeeper. Interestingly, they keep a lot of people who practice Santeria will keep a statue, I think, of Iligwa at the kind of by the door, so that you bring an offering, cigars or just money or other things, and you give it to that statue as you walk in the door to keep from being tricked. Does that sound like anything else that just happened in October 31st, by the way? When I was reading this, I couldn't help but think of that. Lyrical references, just a couple quick things. Skrilla references the Orishas, which are spirits of the Santeria, in his music. He has a couple songs. One of his songs is titled Words from Ocean. That's that goddess of beauty. That's why I wanted to reference it again, or sensuality. And he also has another song called Words from Yamaja, which is the goddess of fertility. So he's clearly writing songs and references that are, influenced satanically. Along with the beats, the other lyrics, and everything else, just absolutely godless. Now, some people did point this out. I don't know if this to me might be a stretch. I don't know. But I think it's worth at least considering. One of the lyrics early on in the song has to do with Baby Shark. So some people were finding it interesting that he would reference a kid's song, perhaps meaning that he's kind of after the kids for helping pushing toward that that false religious system, or that false idea of just being caught up in the wave of whatever. I don't think this was his plan at all. I don't think that he's the mastermind behind all of it, but we certainly do know that the God of this world does prowl around as a roaring lion seeking whom to devour, and he is the God of this world, the prince of the power of the air. So I don't think it's a stretch. It might sound a little bit fantastic or fanatical. And if so, I would say go back to the scriptures, go do your own research. We are not trying to claim to be the expert on everything, just throwing a few hopefully interesting, important, and biblical facts out to you guys today. This is total side note, by the way, on all of this. So just I guess maybe a way to end and wrap this up. The kid who was really that the meme is based on, the kid in March, the Maverick, who had the blonde kind of puffy hair, that really kicked all of this really into the stratosphere. I didn't know this, but I was reading an article on it, and they were saying, oh, well, he was wearing an Essential Fear of God shirt. And I'm not going to take the time to go back to any of the videos or anything and try to show it, but it is there. He's wearing a sweatshirt that's from a line called Essentials Fear of God. Now, I just find it interesting. I'm sure it's not like some master plan. We're not conspiratorialists here at Once Lost, but it's interesting anyway. And so I did a little bit of a dive on that as kind of a side trail. And so I wanted to just pull that in really quick. So here's the Essential Fear of God line. And this was just kind of a side note, but I think it fits in directly with what we're talking about right now. So it says the brand name Fear of God stems from Lorenzo's deep religious background. It is inspired explicitly by Oswald Chambers' devotion book, The Utmost for His Highest. Now there are some issues with that book, but Jerry Lorenzo was interested in how the book described God surrounded by darkness, which made the entire concept aesthetic by nature. Additional inspirations. Now, this is why I'd say, okay, well, this I guess is interesting, but look at his other inspirations. Additional inspirations came to Lorenzo included notable icons such as Kurt Cobain. And then it goes on to different people, but I'm like, okay, well, he's got 90s iconic grunge heroes. Fear of God joins together with this concept with sportswear inspirations. He's also done some deals with like Adidas and many others. So I don't know. You've got this attitude of the religious that is, I think of the scripture that talks about they will have a form of godliness. I think it's in 2nd or 1st Peter or 1st Timothy, talking about men shall be lovers of themselves, and they'll have a form of godliness but deny the power thereof. And I really feel like that's some of what we're seeing is a form of godliness, an emptiness, a meaninglessness that most people don't even have an idea where it is, what it's from, if it's even from all of this. But it's a form of godliness, right? A form of godliness. And, you know, we tend to then fill it in with our own meaning. Empty, there is no vacuum spiritually. You can't just have meaninglessness. And so the world can come up with this concept of having their own fear of God, whatever in the world that means. I have no idea what that means for the world. It sounds very funny to me. Or you can have somebody who chants out 6-7 and maybe is connected to their Santeria religion. But regardless, Santeria is extremely wicked, devilish, dark. And somebody like this that practices those things certainly has no business singing to children or adults for that matter. And so maybe we just need to be on guard and be alert a little bit more. Being careful of those idols. That's what these are with Santeria and other things. And I'm going to go ahead and end with a couple scriptures here as we wrap these things up. I do want to remind us that we are not, we don't have to be fearful. We don't have to be fearful of this world, fearful of the darkness, but we certainly don't need to be ignorant of it either. So I did a quick search for different scriptures dealing with the fear of the Lord. And I thought it'd be interesting just to maybe look at a couple of them. And I just pulled them up this way because it would be a little easier to do so. Psalm 19:9 says, the fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. This is the real fear of God, by the way, not some. By the way, the person who invented that line, the Essentials Fear of God line, has already, made millions by high-end products. That's why it's called essential products, because they're lower-end products. And he's, again, certainly not a Christian. But anyway, Psalm 19:9 says, the fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. Psalm 34:11, come ye children, hearken unto me, and I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Psalm 111:10 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So we were looking at some of those Santeria, different gods, false gods, and one of them was a god of wisdom. And that certainly is not something we need from a false god. That is something we get from the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and his Holy Spirit and his holy scriptures. Verse 10 again, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, a good understanding have all they that do his commandments. His praise endures forever. Proverbs is filled with these. This is a great word study for all of us. Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. I started this with talking about how even the world is recognizing the danger of stripping meaning from pictures or words or concepts and just having behavior without meaning, and the danger of it even is recognized by the world. And that is something that people are starting to recognize more and more. And when you strip things of knowledge, strip things of meaning, they are going to be filled in the end with something very false, very dark. And it might even claim to be light that's dark. Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, real knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. 129, for that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. 2:5 says, then shall you understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. 8:13, it says, the fear of the Lord is to hate evil. Pride, arrogancy, and the evil way, and the froward mouth do I hate. Now, if you listen to any of these songs, one word that does come to mind is evil. And so if we really want the true fear of God, true fear of the Lord, the essential fear of God, these are things we need to consider carefully. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the holy is understanding. Now, this is one that I want to point out here. The fear of the Lord, this is one of our memory verses almost every year. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. So we're not just looking at knowledge. We're not just looking at knowing things for knowledge's sake. We are looking at the fear of the Lord, that it's the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy. We want to know God. We want to know him. Paul said that I might know him and the fellowship of his sufferings and the power of his resurrection in Philippians. We want to know these things. We want to know what's true. And I could go on. There are so many excellent scriptures here, but I am going to just read a few more. Proverbs 10, 27, the fear of the Lord prolongs days, but the years of the wicked shall be shortened. We see that often in people's lives that are lived like this, like Kurt Cobain, for example, and many others that sadly are caught up in the darkness of this world. Proverbs 14:26, the fear of the Lord is a strong confidence, and his children have a place of refuge. A lot of children today, I think this is talking generally of anybody who's his child, but specifically to children, there are a lot of children that have no hope. And we have hope in Christ. We can offer that to them. The fear of the Lord is a fountain, Proverbs 14:27 says. Fear of the Lord is a fountain of life, to depart from the snares of death. When someone like Skrilla calls his concerts and describes them anyway as a zombie land, that's what he's talking about. Mindless death that he offers to humanity. And we have children laughingly referencing whether or not the 6-7 is connected to him referencing something about the Santeria religion. His influence of death and mysticism and occultism just ought not be celebrated, mindlessly or otherwise. So I want to read here. Proverbs 16:6 says, by mercy and truth iniquity is purged, and by the fear of the Lord men depart from evil. 22:4 says, by humility and the fear of the Lord are riches, honor, and life. People like Skrilla often will promise things. You notice in a lot of their videos, they're holding wads, literally wads of cash that are connected to drug deals or whatever. And, he's made, I'm sure, millions of dollars and will continue to do so because of the 6-7 craze. But it's only for temporary. And here it says, verse 22 or chapter 22, verse 4, by humility and the fear of the Lord are riches, honor, and life. It's not talking about physical riches there. It says here in verse 23, let not your heart envy sinners, but be in the fear of the Lord all the day long. Watching these kind of people get rich brings a lot of envy to young people and to grown-ups wanting to be even just a YouTuber who makes money and can sit around and make videos all day and make money at it. It says, let not your heart envy sinners, but be you in the fear of the Lord all the day long. And we could go on from there, but that's a great place to almost wrap it up. I'm going to wrap it up with this verse here. That we use these verses often. It says this. I'm going to back up a little bit. It says, we know whosoever is born of God. This is 1 John chapter 5. Whosoever is born of God sinneth not, but he that is begotten of God keeps himself, and that wicked one touches him not. And we know that we are of God, and the whole world lies in wickedness. And we know that the Son of God is come and has given us an understanding that we might know him who is true, and we are in him who is true, and even in his Son, and we are in him who is true, even in his Son, Jesus Christ. This is the true God and eternal life. Little children, keep yourselves from idols. Amen. So not trying to be a discouragement, trying to be an encouragement, and just remind us that we need to mindfully, in the real word, thinking carefully about the scriptures and the things that we do, even if it's something as seemingly innocent as chanting a little number phrase. So keep serving Jesus, you guys, and thank you for joining us today. And just keep going back to your scriptures. Keep going back to the word in humility and in truth. And we'll see you again. We'll see you again soon, either here, there, or in the air.